Let me tell you of the days of high adventure.
I spend a lot of time talking about knives. I've been selling knives at Knifewear for like 11 years. I talk about how they're made and how they're sharpened and how they're used, but I've never actually made a knife. Never in my life. I'm kind of embarrassed by it, honestly. And so I wanted to fix that, and so I've come down here today to Black Cat Metal to see my buddy Chris Green.
My name's Chris. I've been a bladesmith, blacksmith for almost 15 years now. My studio here, I've been here for about 4 years now, and I teach people to make knives, and I make knives myself.
So I talked to you ahead of time. I've been getting kind of back into Scottish culture and my Scottish heritage. I bought a kilt last year, and I've been building pieces of the kit. And one of those pieces that was missing was a ski and do. And I didn't want to just go buy the really cheap ones that are mostly plastic from the store. I thought it'd be cool to make one myself. Totally. So I talked to Chris. I showed him some kind of traditional designs that I liked. Mm-hmm. You've picked out a couple of materials here.
Yeah,
that you thought we could work with.
I thought we would go with a real traditional elk stag crown, and my specialty in knife making is making a integral bolster knives, which is, ignore the broken bit on the end, but integral bolster, hidden tang, and it slots into your handle material. So we're going to take a nice piece of high carbon steel. This is W1 high carbon steel. It's got 1.25% carbon in it. We're going to squish it, manipulate it, sculpt it, and we're going to ram it inside the material. So that's going to be the process today.
Sweet, let's get to it. All right, Chris, tell us about the first step.
First step is we got to get our steel hot and hit it hard.
Is there a temperature you're going for, or just color?
Yeah, I was trained by a 96-year-old man, excuse me, and everything that he taught me was based on colors. So I'm a horrible judge of what the exact temperature is, but we're probably sitting at about 1,000 Celsius.
How did you get into blacksmithing? How did you start?
Well, I have a background in archaeology, which introduced me to blacksmithing and bladesmithing. But I never saw myself doing it until I watched Conan the Barbarian when I was in between jobs. So if you've ever seen that first 10 minutes of Conan, I hope you have.
Yeah.
I've been trying to get you to watch that.
Yeah, no, I have.
So the first 10 minutes are young Conan and his mom and his dad making what is known as the Aurochs sword. It's 1,000% wrong. However, it's dark, there's sparks.
Yeah,
right?
It's cool as hell.
And then the music kicks in, and then we got Crom and the Giants and the Riddle of Steel, and I'm like, I'm hooked. All right, steel's nice and bright orange. That means we are ready to forge on it. So the first process I want to do is to start isolating material to draw it out to create the basic blade shape. And to do that, we're going to use a 30-ton hydraulic press. This can be done with hand hammering. However, I'm not getting any younger, and this high carbon steel does not like to move when you hit it with your hammer. So I'm going to use my press. All right, here we go. That's about as cold as we want to hit it. High carbon steel can be pretty temperamental under extreme stress. The idea, whether you're forging with a hammer, a press, or a hammer, is you're creating waves in your steel, right? So you've made your waves to smooth and to elongate and to draw things out. You hit the crest of the waves, and that forces the metal, squishes it, draws it out, and eventually over time, you start to smooth out your steel. So it's really apparent when you're working on the horizontal, so like if you're drawing out the cutting edge or adding length to your steel, you're always making waves. And it's often analogous, I like to call it analogous to if you're painted with a palette knife. So you're pushing the steel. or pushing the paint. We are sculpting, just because we're dirty and, hair shoot and, covered in sawdust and dirt and crap, like we are artists, we're sculpting, we're moving the steel. I always like to look at it as I'm making functional art. All right, you ready?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Start at the tip, work
Yep.
to the shoulder. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, that's hot. Okay. There?
Yep.
All good?
Yep, all good.
Not terrible.
When I start any knife, I often start with, I'm really influenced and inspired by like freshwater fish, especially pike. If you ever look at a pike in profile, they're like the most crazy, amazing aquatic predators. So I love that sort of idea of this predator going through the reeds. So I incorporate those sort of lines in my knives. But with most knives, you really want to start at the tip and work your way back. However, there's nothing wrong with challenging yourself at starting at different points of the knife. And for those of you aspiring bladesmiths out there, start in the middle of your knife and then work outward. You'll really understand how to make a knife. But right now with our bar of steel, we've forged it down enough to start creating the tip. Once you create the tip, now visually, your brain's gonna start putting pieces together. So we're starting at the tip, and we're gonna work all the way back to the very end of the tang, or the hidden tang, or the stick tang, whatever you wanna call it. So our next process now is to get a point on there so we can visually see where we wanna move that steel. It's the fastest I've ever put a point on it.
Yeah, that was quick. Holy. All right, so you teach classes
Yes.
regularly, most weekends?
I teach them whenever the students I work at a time.
Yeah, okay,
So,
cool.
yeah.
And how many people come in, take a class, make their first knife and go, oh my God, I want to quit my office job and start making knives?
Enough.
Yeah.
I have had students actually with the idea coming to do that, to quit their job, in a certain set time period.
Yeah, yeah.
And be like, at this point, I'm going to be making knives. And
Right.
as far as I know, it's happened a couple times.
Wow.
Well, with the social media, unfortunate fire, and all that sort of stuff,
Yeah.
like we do have a misconception of what it takes. But there is a lot of actually just like standing around, and you're like, but it is a blast. Like, anytime you can challenge yourself creatively, I think you're winning. I think, throw away your clocks, throw away your phones, turn out the lights, and just, get raw, get creative, and you'd be surprised where those thoughts and ideas are going to take you. Yeah.
All right, so you just did a whole bunch of smashing and very much altered the shape of this. What were you doing?
I was refining the shape in terms of it lets me see where I want to move the steel. If the steel's all over the place, I can't see where I want to move it. So by refining the profile, now I have a better understanding where I need to add mass or subtract mass. So as we can see, it's starting to look like a knife-shaped object, but this heel still needs to come back further. So I refine the edge to make it pointy. That tells me how much mass I have through the spine to pull things down towards that cutting edge. So my next step now is to continuously get that heel further back, and at the same time start to thin out the blade. But now I've got an idea of where I want to go with my material.
So the press is your heavy lifting, and
Yes.
the hand hammer is the fine tuning.
Exactly.
Cool.
Exactly.
So I know this kind of varies with Japanese knife makers. When you're making a knife, how much of the final shape of like the bevel and the taper and everything is forging, and how much is grinding?
You can't escape grinding, no matter how close you forge the shape. So it really varies from knife to knife. And it also depends on the steel you're using. So if you're using primarily Damascus or something that has a texture or visual to it, you want to leave it thicker so that you can grind and clean away everything. You know, with mono steel blades, it's kind of, now you're sort of expressing your view of it. You could leave some forge scale on there if you want, or you leave it thick and then you clean everything up.
Cool.
It's ultimately what you want to visually show.
Cool.
One of the most important things that I've found is that we have to work under the idea that it takes as long as it takes. Don't be in a rush. A lot of times I tell my students that if you're starting this out as a hobby and you've only got like 2 hours on Sunday afternoon, enjoy those 2 hours. It takes as long as it takes. Even if only you make a piece of round bar pointy, enjoy that process. Never be in a hurry. It's just like toast. Right now we're refining the blade shape. There's a lot of inconsistencies. There's highs where they should be lows. So we are what's known as planishing the blade. We're just moving the surface mass. When you start forging, you want to move the middle of the mass outward. And it's often likened to, if you've ever heard Bruce Lee talk about when he punched people, he punched 1 inch inside of his target. So when you swing a hammer, whether it's hand hammer or a press or whatever, you want to imagine that you're moving the middle of the mass outward. So get it hot, hit it hard, and the finished product should not look like what you started with. I mean, yes, blades are flat, but we want to hold that idea in our mind. And there was a Czech man years ago, his name was Alfred Habermann, and he developed the idea of plastika. So, like just as I said, get it hot, hit it so hard that you're moving the middle of the mass outward to deform the material, and the finished product should not look like what you started with. It's the same in blade making.
Yeah, I like that. It's got a really subtle curve now, which is nice.
Yeah.
It's not too straight.
Yeah, and a lot of blade making I've found over the years is you're taking straight lines and you give that straight line just a little bit of curve or swoop, or just take it out of level. And that like gives it a lot of visual interest.
Looks more appealing to the eye, yeah.
Yeah, there's just a subtle little
yeah.
every so often.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh yeah, that's sexy, I want to hold that one. Yeah. But it was a real trip for me trying to understand that, because in drawing too, there are no lines.
Right.
Right? When you start to draw and paint, like there are no lines. So how do you take a thing where you're making lines all the time and make it appear there's no lines? It took me months to get my head around that.
Yeah. All right. So.
All right. Yep. And then you're going to... And then we just let it cool so we can touch it.
Okay, intermission time. We gotta wait for our knife to cool, but we're done forging. We're kind of at the halfway-ish point.
Yeah, sure. We'll say that.
Yeah,
Takes
cool.
as long as it takes.
Yeah, I like that. If somebody wants to come do what I'm doing today with you, how do they go about that?
My website, blackcatmetal.com, Instagram, black.cat.metal, Facebook, or even, get in touch with you folks at Knifewear. I'm sure
there'll be a link down in the description
totally.
to you. So.
But yeah, I'm open to anything. No experience required. I'm happy to throw all my knowledge at whatever your interests are. Not only I teach other things besides blades, regular artistic blacksmithing. So I just want to keep that forging tradition alive. I think it's really important. The modern world was built on the back of giants, And I think to be able to be part of that world is pretty incredible.
Right on.
All right, we're on to the grinding stage, or as I like to think of it as the really sculpting stage. We always want to remember that grinding is a subtractive art form. So what you take off, you can't put back. So there's a lot of compensation that has to go on. No matter how many times you've ground a blade, or I've ground a blade, I'm always going to mess up a little bit. So I have to be able to recover from that and compensate from it. But the initial stages are, I always start with the spine of the knife. I want to even it up with the bolster and sweep the transition in, tidy up the forgings, clean up the edges, and add the bevels, or what will become the cutting edge. I want to preserve as much of the essence of the blade that was forged. So very light grinding is going to happen. Really, it's just a matter of tidying things up. As good as anybody is with a hammer work at the anvil, there's always going to be some inconsistencies. So this is where we're going to clean everything up. So I've started to remove mass towards the cutting edge to help create the cutting edge. I want to try and preserve as much of the forged finish as possible. We have that sort of artisanal look, and I like the contrast of lights and darks. It adds for a really neat aesthetic with the blade. And with the type of handle material we've chosen, which is the stag, that fits really nicely into a more harder, rougher, but still refined looking blade. So we're just about completed the rough profiling, and the cutting edge is mostly there. I don't want to go too much thinner because we run the risk of it warping quite badly during heat treat because of the stress. The last thing I'll do is tidy up the tang so that it can fit inside the stack. It's always good to be checking your work at all times. I hold pieces, hold straight edges to things, look at it in different angles and shadows and light. And I often like to think of grinding as I'm working in shadows and light. Black and white and 1,000 shades of gray. Now it's going. The propane got sucked into here.
I saw there's a bit of blowback there. All right, so what are we doing now? We're heat treating?
We are going to give the blade its heart and soul. So we're going to heat treat. Grinding and forging is quite destructive on the internal crystal structure of steel. So we're going to normalize the internal structure. So we're going to raise it up to a temperature where the steel transforms from a soft substance into other way around. Hard substance into a soft substance, and the soft substance is not magnetic. And we can hold it against a magnet to get a visual on that. We want to do that 3 times. We want to really align and refine the grains. So if the knife is brittle and tends to chip, it means the grain structure is quite large and it won't support a proper cutting edge. It'll continuously crack off. And conversely, if it's not hard enough, if you go to cut something, we're just going to deform the blade. It's going to be quite soft. So this process is all about strengthening and refining, making a tough blade. And the initial stage is raise it to a temperature where it's no longer magnetic, and we let it cool. And we do that 3 times.
Okay.
3 or more, but generally 3, depending on the steel. That will transform the little crystals, which are essentially cubes inside, and make them smaller and smaller and smaller. And what you're looking for is if you take your knife and you crack it open, it's going to look like porcelain inside.
Oh.
Which is a small, dense, tough grain structure. But because it's still quite brittle at that point, we need to reduce the stress buildup that has developed between those bonds. And to do that, we add a little bit more heat. It's about 190 Celsius or 395 Fahrenheit. And that just lets it sit. We soak it in that temperature for about an hour, and the bonds, the stress is relieved, and now we can have a usable cutting edge producing tool.
Okay. So what are those processes called then?
There's the normalizing.
Okay. Which is heating it 3 times.
Yes. And then hardening, where you put it in a quenching medium.
Yeah.
In this case, I have what's known as it's called a Hauto Quench K. So it's a commercially designed quenching oil for high carbon steels.
Cool.
However, you can also use canola or peanut oil, but just don't use it very often because the viscosity breaks down quite a bit.
Okay.
Water, only certain steels like a water quench.
Interesting.
It's doable under the right circumstances. Generally, it should be hot, salty water, but even then, the failure rate is very high.
Okay.
So.
Does oil cool a little more gently than water?
Water is very fast.
Yeah. Okay.
Very, very fast. It's probably the fastest medium you can quench.
Right.
Oil
Super
is
conductive.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Oil, and these oils are designed to not have a steam jacket around the material.
Okay.
And that allows the quenching medium to touch the steel and remove that heat.
As opposed to a more inconsistent.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And if you think about it, because the way that steel hardens is inside the iron molecule is the carbon molecules, and as they migrate out, they go to the edge, and then when you harden it in a medium, those molecules go fast, and that fast action creates a hard blade.
Okay.
So it's like an elastic band being released.
Cool.
So as you can see,
Oh.
cold steel sticks, right? But hot steel. Tongs are still going to stick. So it is a totally new substance called austenite. And as it cools, it'll start to stick. There's the phase shift. You can just see the very tip there. So that tip is now magnetic. For the rest, it's not. So there's martensite. Austenite. This is martensite. And then we let that cool. We do that 3 times.
This is great because I have read about this stuff so many times, and I've never once retained that information because I don't learn that way.
I still struggle.
But it's cool to see it in person. It really helps it click in your mind.
Tip to heel. Sweet. Just dip it a little deeper.
Deeper. Is that good?
Yeah, that's good right there.
So the flames, is that just because it's a bit hot?
Yeah, the smoke caught fire. So it's nothing to worry about.
Cool.
Anyway, sits in there for an hour.
Okay. Okay, we're back. We ran out of time last time, so the knife we forged, heat treated, and it's been like a month, and I've been thinking about knife making nonstop ever since. Pretty much like every day. I'm like, oh, I want to make more knives, which is a problem, but a good problem.
Yeah.
So you've done a lot of work behind the scenes to
I
pretty things
caught
up.
everything up.
Yeah.
A lot of it's just like watching grass grow and making little parts and things fit together. Then like here we are.
Wow.
So we're getting close. I'm just about ready to glue it up.
Cool.
So now it's just time to glue it up, and then we'll do final polish
Yeah.
on the blade cutting edge.
Yeah,
And,
I like there's a little bit of scale left, but
yeah.
not a ton, right? That's what they do when they do makeup tutorials on
Oh,
YouTube.
okay.
So we've stolen this trick.
Oh.
Because it helps.
Does it work?
The camera doesn't want to focus on something this size, so you put your hand behind it, and it makes it catch the focus.
all these things.
Otherwise,
that
it wants to look at your face and focus on that.
Well, you could do that too.
Yeah. And it's not heavy, like, because it's so chunky up here,
Yeah.
but it tapers down really
Yeah.
nice, which is, I don't like too thick behind the edge, right? Like, obviously some durability is good, but
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
that's
the
so
final
awesome.
the final edge will have like the apple seed or convex edge.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's gonna last like forever. All right, let's do some gluing. Now it's just a matter of filling it with a lot of epoxy. So I dye all my epoxies black. Gives it sort of a neat, sort of thin hairline, black line.
Oh,
and
cool.
also, if there's any inconsistencies.
Yeah.
They're hidden.
Smart.
SMRT. All right, and this is a 1-to-1 5-minute epoxy.
Okay.
I have used various epoxies over the years. I've never seen a difference between 24-hour and 5-minute.
Constant improvisation, I imagine,
Oh,
when
yeah.
you're knife making, hey?
Yeah, and it's continuous problem solving too, which is sort of the fun aspect of it, because no matter how many times you build something, you're still going to run into problems that arise based on the organic nature of creation. And the neat thing about epoxy is it heats up, so it's
Right, exothermic reaction.
yeah, well, sciencey and stuff. It gets hot. I pour it in the hole. An old teacher of mine used to say there were certain key points in the parts of creation that your heart's going to be pumping with panther piss. Sometimes I find this is it, because you've got literally 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So you better know what you're doing, or have all your ducks in a row.
Make sure your mise en place is good to go.
Yes, precisely. And then slide that on. It's going to spooge out, as I like to say. It looks messy, and believe me, it is, but we have ways of cleaning things. So I'm not concerned right now.
Yeah.
Most important thing is I got to get this pin in. And I've domed one side, and the other one will dome after the fact.
Right.
These are the sorts of things I do on a daily basis, is making little tiny pieces fit. So when I say it's like watching grass grow, it really is like
Really
watching.
finicky kind of work, eh?
Yeah. There. And as it sets up, I'll come in with some acetone, and anything I missed, the acetone will take off.
Nice. And so from here, what are the steps we're going to go through?
The next step is just to start cleaning up this blade, remove all the scratches from the grinding, and polish it out. I think what would look really cool is we force a patina on here.
Yeah, totally.
That'll give it a really nice look, especially with the differential hardening that we
make
did.
that line pop a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be really sexy.
And what do you like to force a patina with?
I have various techniques. My favorite is just ferric chloride.
Yeah.
And then using.
That's what I was thinking this morning. I was like, I bet that knife would look cool if we put some ferric chloride on it.
Yeah. You can also use mustard, which is really cool. Although some steel. Oh yeah, that's right.
Sky's done a couple of videos.
That's
We'll throw to
right.
that video.
I
and we got
remember.
another one coming out soon where she tries 10 different patina methods that our friends on the internet suggested. Everything from cheap steak to boiling vinegar to instant coffee, all sorts of stuff. Yeah. Okay, it's done. This thing is fucking awesome.
It's fucking. It came together beautifully.
I love it so much.
Oh, even happy accidents came together.
I'm just gonna be like staring. I'll go go get it. Like just look at it tonight.
Well, you should. I always
yeah.
encourage, anytime you make something, especially like, in my studio, like take it home, sit with it, enjoy that process of like how you started to how it finished.
Yeah.
Like it's a pretty powerful thing to be able to do.
It is, yeah. The ability to transform, like we started with a piece of antler and a piece of steel into this is pretty awesome. If you haven't experienced that kind of thing, or you haven't made a knife before, I recommend it if you can, if it's accessible to you. I would recommend coming and take a class with Chris, obviously. Find somebody local, or just give it a try. Or even just pick up some whetstones and do a bit of sharpening, because it's just like doing stuff with your hands feels good.
It really does.
Yeah.
It really, really does.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Chris. That was a lot
My
of fun.
pleasure.
I really appreciate it. I'm going to be back real soon to make myself more knives.
Nice. I like it. I like the sound of that.
In the meantime, I'm going to make a leather sheath for this, so I'll show you that when it's done. I don't know, do you have anything you want to leave people with?
I guess just, get out. That's just as Nathan said, like use your hands, get dirty, have fun, follow your bliss.
It feels great. It's very satisfying.
Yeah, it really does.
Cool. Thanks for watching, folks.
Well,
Okay, you thought the video was over, suckers? Well, there's like 30 seconds more left. I just wanted to show you real quick. I finished up my knife sheath. So we finished that beautiful knife at Chris's place, but I got myself some leather tools, bought a piece of veg tan leather, and did a little YouTube University, learned how to make a leather sheath. This guy I wet fit, so it's got a really nice fit to the knife itself. It's gonna lock in there. You know, there's definitely some amateur mistakes on there. For example, it's a left-handed sheath and not a right-handed sheath. But you know, you work and you learn. And if you know anything about Scottish culture, you'll probably notice that this is a bit big for a skene-dhu. Usually it's, you know, that big and you put it in your sock. But historically speaking, this is actually about perfect because this is about the right size and shape to be a skean aclis, which it means armpit knife, I believe. It would just be worn kind of here under a jacket, but it's a knife shape that I wanted to make regardless. So it turned out bigger and it's perfect because now I can use it for hunting and camping and all sorts of outdoor stuff. So I'm honestly quite happy with the shape and size that we ended up with. Guess I'll make a skene-dhu next. But I just wanted to leave people with a message, like we said a few minutes ago, just, you know, go out and make something. If you don't have the money to go take a knife making class with Chris, you know, pick up some knitting needles and wool, or a whetstone and a dull knife, or, you know, some leather and a couple of leather crafting tools. Making stuff with your hands is really inspiring and meditative, and I just love it. It's so much fun. So I hope you, you know, get out there and make something. All right, see you in the next one.